All looks the same there.
Alrighty, welcome back to round number 5 here at GameSwap Mason, brought to you by Top Deck Productions. We've got a bit of some spice going on in round number 5.
Yeah, something you may have seen but you don't see too often. We've got Thopter Sword, which is a blue-black deck. Every once in a while you'll see it as an Esper version. Against a Hate Bear style green white deck?
Yeah, a Hate Bear is just really trying to get people with Arbiter and Ghost Quarter.
And
Thalia's in the mix.
Yeah.
So not a particularly great matchup for Thopter, this Thopter Sword list, which is playing a little bit different than if you've seen Tezzeret and other friends. This list is really more artifact based. Definitely still has the bridges. You can see one being deployed there. But it also has the option for winning with kind of like an eggs finish with Croc Clan Ironworks.
Right. So Blade Splicer coming down, making a 3/3 golem.
Excellent value creature.
Can currently attack if it wanted, because Erik has 3 cards. Noble Hierarch is not the card you want to see when you're playing Ensnaring Bridge. That is one of the few cards that can get under an empty-handed Ensnaring Bridge.
This is true, because when you declare Noble as a attacker, it only has 0 power, and then it will get the 1 power off the Exalted after it has already been declared. So Erik very smartly knocks off the Noble there, but Phil is equipped with a second one.
So he Aether Vialed it in on the turn. So Erik still has 2 cards in his hand. So can't attack with the Golem, but can attack with the Blade Splicer. Gets pumped up by that Noble Hierarch, so gets him for 2. Puts Erik down to 18, as long as I think our life totals could be reversed. Nope, they are corrected now. In Phil's hand, he's got a Flicker Wisp, 2 Flicker Wisps, and a card I can't tell what it is. Erik has another Fatal Push, and he had an Inventor's Fair that he played. Spire of Industry he played this turn, I believe.
It looks like Phil's going to get just maximum value off of those Flicker Wisps with 2 Blade Splices in play, kind of almost guaranteeing himself getting more golems. And if you can find a way to get rid of that bridge, this might be just a one-turn swing with all that power in play. But until then, just chipping away. We're confirming the timing on the Thespian.
You can only it's Inventor's Fair.
Inventor's Fair.
Current standard card. You can only use the tutor ability as a sorcery. They were checking. Erik wanted to do it at end step, and then he remembered that he thought you could only do it as a sorcery, and reread it. So Erik really likes these artifact blue-black decks. He's
Absolutely.
been known to play ad nauseum a lot with Pentad Prisms and the Lotuses and everything he can. Blue-black.
Oh, I guess he was missing the 3 artifacts to activate.
That's what it was.
So he does now have...
search the library for an artifact card, reveal it.
He does have Metalcraft available, so that Mox Opal will also tap for mana.
Yeah, so it's a Metalcraft not called Metalcraft.
Right.
So you can't use this unless you have Metalcraft.
Right.
So he got a Thopter Foundry.
Yep. Which is one of the namesakes of the deck. Alright, Phil opting not to flicker. Blade Splicer number 2.
So Erik now has I think he has 3 cards again. And they played his land, played his Thopter Foundry. I think he's down to 1.
Mm-hmm. We might see what it is right here. All right.
Stacking a Mox Opal to the Thopter Foundry to make a Thopter.
And gain a life. That is a often forgot ability of Thopter Foundry as well. That life can really add up over time, especially when you have the combo in play. I thought it was interesting that he was opting to blow up. Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
Yeah, you have to think if he's sacking his Opal, he probably has another Opal.
Right.
Now, they are apparently in need of blue shards of Alara Thopters, I think, which you can only get out of one of the Master sets, I believe, actual shards of Alara, and possibly
an unglued
the Unstable.
The Unstable. Unstable has beautiful full art versions of the Thopter token.
So if our stream runner wants to run back to where we're commentating, I have one that happen to be, I have multiple that happen to be in my box. I like to come prepared with the tokens for all cases.
Interestingly, for this combo, I find I need 3 versions of the token because I need the one equipped to the sword, untapped Thopters that didn't attack this turn, and then tapped Thopters for the ones that did attack.
Okay.
It's an interesting need, but normally I go with the two token theory.
I can see your need.
Yeah.
So Phil has played a Brimaz and a Flicker Wisp.
Definitely building up that board state.
Still stuck underneath this ensnaring bridge, though. He's gonna have to find an answer. I'm not sure if he has a main deck answer or not. Oh, they went with the fat Thopters.
The fat.
Standard
Thopters.
I mean the husky Thopters.
Yes.
I don't want to upset.
Yes.
Any Thopter lovers or
that Thopter is also blue, so in EDH, again, this comes up all the time when my opponent has a Sword of Fire and Ice that can swing through my Thopters. All right, and it looks like Phil cast a Leonin Arbiter, but Erik did not crack his fetch land, so he is lamenting that fact. There we go. We now have the Thopters available for use. They are much more pretty than the standard counterpart.
All those Thopters that were on screen, they were so pretty for such a short period of time.
Just a little bit of time. I'm sure we'll see more Thopters. All right, so Erik is paying 2 mana to search for both the path and the fetch land.
No, you just have to pay 1 stick in each turn. If there's 2 arbiters, if there's 2 arbiters or blink the arbiter, there is no arbiter now. It's very weird. It deactivates the other arbiters. Yeah, I activated the arbiter, and it doesn't use the stack. It's very anyway, I have paid the tax today.
So I think Erik is just evaluating the board state. I think he feels pretty comfortable with just having his ensnaring bridge and sitting behind it.
Yeah. It's one of those cards where you just sit, stare at your stuff, and try and figure out a way out of it, and realize maybe there isn't one.
Looks like he whirred end of turn for 2, got a Sword of the Meek, which means he's going to untap, stack that Mox Opal, make a Thopter, put the sword, equip the sword onto the Thopter, sack the Thopter, draw a card, make a Thopter, equip it, sack the Thopter, draw a card, and essentially draw through his deck and gain as many life as cards he wants to draw.
Does he have a draw engine there?
Oh, well, Sword of the Meek Thopter combo.
Well, that will produce tokens and then gain life.
The Sword of the Meek, when the creature attached to it dies, you draw a card.
Can we just start while we wait?
Unless I'm remembering incorrectly, this was an old Thopter Sword combo. And I think if our stream runner could pull up Sword of the Meek, I think it's target creature gets +1/+1 if it's
+1/+2.
and if it dies, you draw a card.
And if Sword of the Meek's in your graveyard,
whenever a 1/1 creature comes into the play under your control, you may return Sword of the Meek from your graveyard to play and attach to that creature. I am thinking of probably Skull Clamp, honestly.
Yes, of Skull Clamp. There we go. Skull Clamp, you would definitely draw cards.
So Erik is playing Karkan Ironworks.
So this is the unique aspect to this version of the deck where he can actually sack the Thopter to Ironworks to generate 2 mana, spend a mana to make another Thopter, and then go infinite from there.
Right. So you can make infinite Thopters?
Infinite Thopters, which is also infinite life off of Thopter Foundry and going to be able to just, put Phil out of the game.
I actually have seen this once in the past probably year and a half, and before that it was with Skull Clamp, which is why I was remembering that he gets to draw cards when he sacrifices the creature, because you equip it and it dies and then you draw a card. But as we know, Skull Clamp has been banned for a considerable amount of time. But back when Thopter Sword was a very viable, popular modern deck, that's how it worked.
It might have been extended. I think it was one of the banned cards from the beginning. It was definitely the best deck in extended, especially with Dark Depths. Putting those two combos that had nothing to do with each other, but put them in the same deck. It just was absolutely brutal to try and fight against.
It looks like Erik is going through his sideboard and pulling out the Tezzeret's, maybe a Spellskite? Nope, he left the Spellskite in there. Left his Hand Disruption in the sideboard, also has an Abrupt Decay, Damnation, Surgical.
I feel pretty good about Damnation.
I do too. I also,
Erik not really playing creatures, only technically playing, generating tokens. I believe there are no creatures in the entire 75. Other than that Spellskite, I suppose.
So he's taking out Collective Brutalities. And he had a main deck Grafdigger's Cage and a Pithing Needle. Looks like he took out the Grafdigger's Cage. Maybe that Pithing Needle was just another Sword of the Meek, and I was confused about the art there.
Yeah, Phil, I believe, is likely running Eternal Witness, but not too much graveyard interaction on his side.
I did see Company, so I would not be surprised if he wasn't running Eternal Witness. But like we saw in the game prior when we were watching Eldrazi Tron with Connor Sloan against the Bant Company deck, Grafdigger's Cage is really only good for that one interaction, so not necessarily something that you value bringing in.
Although it is a 1-mana artifact that adds to your Metalcraft count, so it does have some play in that sense.
That's true.
That Mishra's Bauble didn't get cracked for quite a while just to make sure that Erik was able to maintain Metalcraft. Without the artifact lands, it's a little bit more difficult. Luckily, the artifact lands aren't in Modern.
Yeah, that Affinity would love if that were not the case. I'd love to have those artifact lands.
So how much, or if you're Phil here, what artifact destruction are you playing, do you think, in order to combat what Erik's doing?
Well, he's playing white and green, and he's playing creatures, so I would imagine that he has access to Reclamation Sage, likely.
Rex Sage?
Maybe Kasali Pride Mage, because his Exalted matters, and also that deals with artifacts as well. I wouldn't expect him to have much else, like no Nature's Claim or Naturalize or Disenchant
Kitaki,
or
maybe?
Like that. He might have Kitaki. That would be good if he did. I didn't get to see his sideboard toolbox or anything like that.
Well, he's got the turn 1 green-white mana into an Aether Vial, which is, the best possible turn 1 for this deck. So we'll see if he can capitalize on it. But Erik fires back with a Land Opal.
That looks like he has a second Aether Vial of a different art. Played Athalia.
I believe Phil does have different art Aether Vials, you know, just to guarantee the tilt on camera here.
But does he have different art Thalias? Is his other land a Terramorphic Expanse? What is that land?
That is a... No, it's not a Terramorphic. Tectonic Edge.
Tech Edge?
It's
Okay.
the old land destruction, kind of before Field of Ruin, and basically requires your opponent to have 4 or more lands, and then you get to destroy a non-basic land if you want and tap it. It was always cute. You could activate 2 of them at the same time as long as your opponent had 4 or more lands, and then you could hit 2 of them at the same time.
Right.
But works real well in Phil's deck where he's just trying to tax his opponent's mana. Not something that Field of Ruin doesn't want to give his opponent a basic.
Should be pretty good against Erik's Inventor's Fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And then just some updates for chat. I believe Phil is 3-1 going into this round. I think he has 9 points.
Yeah, Phil has 9 points and Erik has 10.
Mm-hmm.
So Phil took a tie. So Erik kept a 2-land hand and has missed. So he might get run over by Phil this game.
It's looking like it.
Especially with that turn 2 Thalia was a pretty big game.
And Erik was unable to find a land, I think, for a while.
He drew a Watery Grave. I'm not sure if that turns on much in his hand. He doesn't have Metalcraft, so he can't use that Opal. So he couldn't cast a bridge even if he had Metalcraft, he could, but he does not. So he's down to 10, facing 6 damage, possibly end step Vial. I'm not sure what Phil has to put into play or not. He has a Flicker Wisp. He's going to flicker the Blade Splicer, and then he kills Erik on untap.
Yeah.
That is 12 damage, and he is a 10. Looks like we're going to get a game 3.
All right, that was a quick game. Phil really getting everything he needed, and just one Thalia. I mean, clearly the power of that card.
Turn 1 Aether Vial, turn 2 Thalia, and then just Blade Splicer, Flicker Blade Splicer. That's all he needs. Erik didn't happen to have interaction this game. Last game he had multiple fatal pushes, which were pretty key in the match. Being able to empty his hand, control the board a little bit, so that he gave him time to get that Ensnaring Bridge online with a low card count. What is that card in Erik's hand, second from the right? It looks like a talisman or something?
I believe he is playing some number of talismans.
Looks like Phil's fine with his 7 and Erik is going down to 6.
I wonder about mulliganing in this deck. It is difficult, I'd say, just because a lot of your pieces do nothing on their own. And especially without any lands. Oh, nope, okay, he does have an island here, but
Phil
he's gonna
looks
keep
like
it.
He's going to have a turn 1 Hierarch into turn 2 Kusali Pride Mage. I'm not sure if that's a Rest in Peace possibly in his hand, but turn 1 Hierarch, and he has multiple Kusali Pride Mages, and I think a Blade Splicer in his hand, so he's got a great opener. Drew a Heath.
Into Erik's land opal. That's all I got.
It's a nice looking Beta Plains, I believe.
That is a nice looking beta plains.
That is not my favorite art from the Alpha Beta Unlimited set. There is a kind of a gloomy looking plains that is my favorite from Alpha Beta Unlimited.
Okay.
I believe there are 3 arts, or 3 in Alpha and 4 in Beta and Unlimited. I think they added an additional art to Beta because they needed to get the card count over 300. So they added an additional land art to each of the lands.
yeah, you know, add additional land arts, cut out Volcanic Island. I mean, all these decisions seem smart.
Sure, sure.
Just like playing that Rest in Peace was a decision that seemed smart here. So Rest in Peace will shut off the Thopter Foundry combo because the Sword of the Meek does go to the graveyard, even though it doesn't look like it, because it's generating.
But it wouldn't
Thopter so
actually go to
quickly.
the graveyard now. So
Right.
it looks like he's going to pop that Consolidate Pride Mage right away to get that star out of there.
Which definitely was smart. Gets rid of an artifact count, prevents Metalcraft this turn, and then also Erik's really starved for mana, so keeping that trend going.
And Phil has another Casali, so if he wants to play it and get in for 2 with the Hierarch and then blow up the Opal or blow up the Talisman, he can do that as well. But he also has a Phyrexian Revoker in his hand. So Revoker naming Talisman. Then a Pride Mage. Tag for 2.
Chipping away at the life total here.
Now, since that Talisman is in play and just turned off, it does allow Erik to play a sword and now have Metalcraft with the Mox.
This is true.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see Phil attack for 4 and maybe sack that Casali Pride Mage on the Opal if he's concerned about maybe an Ensnaring Bridge.
Hitting the sword here while the Rest in Peace is in play also, I think, isn't terrible.
I think he might actually just hold the Casali Pride Mage in case he does end up playing a Ensnaring Bridge, because then he can blow up the bridge and still get through.
Right. So it's interesting here because Erik's deck is primarily blue and black. It doesn't lend great answers to enchantments, and so this Rest in Peace might just be shutting down the combo for quite a while until Erik can find an answer.
And I don't think Erik has much time to work with, even if he does have an Ensnaring Bridge, which I think he does. It's not going to do anything because Phil will just crack the Pride Mage and then attack for 6, putting Erik to 4 and demanding another answer. Erik has an Abrupt Decay and 2 Whirs, a Tezzeret, and an Ensnaring Bridge.
And if only he had 10 mana.
Then he could cast all the things.
Yeah, all the things. Is that
That is a
big
Thalia
Thalia?
Heretic Thar? Yeah, the buy a box promo or something, I think. 3/2 first strike,
Right.
non-basic lands coming to play tapped.
Is that the one for just your opponents?
I think it's all non-basic lands coming to play tapped. I don't think it's
Okay.
I don't think it's just your opponents. Streamrunner says it is just opponents, so
All right, I guess its opponents. Is it also creatures on
Yes.
Thalia? I remember losing to this card.
it is creatures
Not
and
remembering
non-basic
exactly
lands.
what it did.
I thought the non-basic lands was both sided and the creatures part was only your opponents. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponents. Oh.
I do like-
even better than I remember.
I do like that they keep the continuity with the first strike on Thalia, though. I feel like that's just her thing is definitely always getting in there first.
Yep.
Well, it does look like Erik has assembled Thopter Sword, but to very little avail as that Rest in Peace will shut down the combo.
And also Erik happens to be at 1, facing down what looks like 6 threats and a Casali Pride Mage.
So
Is that a Celestial Purge to destroy?
I think that's Celestial Purge.
Destroy your Thopter Foundry. We were talking earlier about blue-black, about what the colors of this were, and just calling it a Thopter Sword. And I said, I'm pretty sure it's Esper. And now I remember it is Esper, because Thopter Foundry is Esper. It is blue, white,
Technically
and
true.
black.
Yes, yes. However, it only requires you to have black or white. So therefore, you can play it in this blue-black shell.
Or you could play it in a white-black shell.
True. Yeah. Or a blue-white shell.
Yes, because
You have to have the
blue is
blue.
the required, and then the white-black is the either-or. All right, Phil got there. Erik stumbled on lands a little bit, and The Thalia was, and the Casalis were just crushing him.
Yep. Just a little bit too much pressure too early on and be able to disruptive enough. And
As soon as